Well, I didn't plan on this career path, but I had some experiences that had a huge impact on my thinking and led me to this field. In the 1980s, I worked as a forensic clinical psychologist in a maximum security state psychiatric hospital where I evaluated and treated violent offenders. I saw many cases of young people who had committed violent crimes, and every case was a tragedy. And in studying the history and circumstances of these crimes, it was painfully obvious to me that there were places, multiple places in a young person's history where violence could have been prevented. With the benefit of hindsight, you could see the pathway that many of them were on and what might have been done in terms of an intervention at home or at school or in the community that could have made a difference. Violence is a highly preventable outcome. And in 1986, I had the opportunity to join the faculty at the School of Education at the University of Virginia, where I set up a program to study youth violence and develop ways to prevent it. As school shootings became more prominent in the 90s, I studied school violence in particular and evaluated several young men who had committed school shootings. I worked with the FBI in their study of school shootings, and in 1999, they introduced me to the concept of behavioral threat assessment. It was a great fit for the work I was doing to think that we could evaluate persons who threaten violence and find ways to help that steered them off their violent pathway. After participating in the FBI study of school shootings, I wanted to see if threat assessment could actually be put into practice in schools. In 2001, I convened a work group of educators from our local schools and a panel of national experts on violence prevention. My research team and I developed threat assessment guidelines for schools. Now, we wanted to go beyond the general recommendations to use threat assessment principles and to have actual procedures and concrete practices that schools could implement safely and efficiently. We developed a set of procedures and field tested them in 35 schools. The results were very promising, and from there we developed a threat assessment manual and a one-day training program for schools. We trained more than 1,000 schools in Virginia and published a series of studies showing its effectiveness. Now we've trained thousands of schools all over the United States and Canada. We have annual school climate surveys from students and teachers in all Virginia secondary schools. When we looked at those surveys, we found that when schools used our model, they had a more positive school climate. There was less bullying and fighting in the school, and the teachers reported feeling safer. We also know that the suspension rates in those schools went down. Well, first of all, I was impressed that Navigate360 wanted to do things right. They wanted a high-quality system that would help schools do the best possible job at threat assessment. They also wanted software that directly used the CSTAG model and allowed me to have a lot of input into how it was designed. Well, I had been thinking about online training for several years. There's a lot of information to cover in our one-day workshop, and many of our participants suggested that some of the content could be put online. And then the live workshop could be concentrated on case exercises where the teams worked together and really learned how to use the model. So when the pandemic hit, many schools asked us to provide online training. I was first reluctant to do this because a full-day workshop could be tough and not as effective a training experience as a live workshop. However, the folks at Navigate360 convinced me that we could develop an online program that could be both engaging and effective. I would have to say it's working with the team. The folks at Navigate360 are great to work with. I've been leading the CSTAG Training Program for many years, and the demand is really more than one person can manage. I've got research and teaching to do, and managing a business was not part of my career plan. But we have lots of schools that need training, and that means a lot of kids we can help. And Navigate360 can help make that happen.